Stephen A., I could actually argue that it hurts the game more if they had given her a roster spot over someone more deserving.
So go ahead and argue.
That's exactly what I'm saying, because I think it makes a mockery of the women's game. If the focus on, now we just have to have people because of marketing and their attention, and they're not as talented, and we're not putting the best team out there.
Now it's crickets.
No one denied the fact that she's a star and she couldn't play. It was just that it takes.
Y'all were denying it, Molly. Don't do that.
And there's
Don't do that, Molly.
Shannon, what are you saying? People didn't think that Caitlin Clark was talented?
If you haven't been a big fan of Caitlin Clark in the last few games, they've been very harsh on you. Clark averages 25 to 30 points and 10 to 12 assists per game. And most importantly, her team wins. Unfortunately for Clark, when it comes to journalism, people like Molly Cam on First Take keep moving the goalposts every day. And, as you saw in the introduction, Molly Cam claimed months ago that Clark was not as good and that her inclusion on Team USA was a mockery of the sport. Molly Cam was right there, sure and convinced that Clark should not be on Team USA. Now, fast forward a month and a half, Molly Cam changes the goalposts as normal, and no one doubts Clark's talent, skill, or general aptitude, despite the fact that Molly Cam did the same a month before. Many of these female experts, for various reasons, want Caitlin Clark to fail at every turn. Looking back at her undergraduate years, Molly Cam said that if Paige Beckers was healthy, she would lessen Clark and her entire prominence. Looking back on Molly's USA comments, she was incorrect in claiming that Clark was not as gifted as he was skilled at the time. Clark played 23 games prior to the selection, averaging 17 points, 8 assists, 6 boards, and nearly 2 steals while shooting well.
If Paige Beckerson basically missed 2 seasons, I don't know if we'd be talking about Caitlin Clark the way we are now. And that's facts, Stephen A.
Clark and the entire league were in first place in assists, top 15 in scoring, top 5 in three-pointers made, and the greatest player on her team at the time. Yet, she was passed over for completely political reasons unrelated to basketball. Looking at their roster, someone like Chelsea Gray, a respectable player, was put on the roster in place of Clark. Prior to her selection, she had only played 9 total games, and in those games, she wasn't lighting it up, averaging 8 points per game, 5 assists, 3 boards, and shooting decently. So Chelsea Gray, who was 32 years old, injury-prone, and coming off an injury, would be added to the roster ahead of Clark. Kind of suspect. Then, for some reason, Diana Taurasi, who was 75 years old and had played in perhaps 12 Olympics, had to be on this team, and her number is pre-selection compared to Clark, Caitlin, and superior overall. Clark's complete absence from the team was a political decision based on optics, as they did not want Clark to save their roster or represent their club while being a rookie, and for many of these guys to talk about developing the game and making it more popular. Having Clark on this team would have helped their cause tremendously. Of course, Clark isn't exactly a fan favorite among these players, coaches, or the media. Now, that buttonhole clip pretty much sums up the WNBA's failures over the last 25 years. Even as the Clarks rise to popularity, they continue to whine about previous players not receiving their fair share. And here's the brutal reality. Those former guys, those legends, may have been terrific players, but what they achieved for the sport.
And Team USA is not worried about marketing. It is not their job to grow the WNBA.
It's unfair to the women of this league, to your point, who have laid the groundwork for Caitlin Clark to come in and now take it to the next level.
Now is the time to stick to what you know and what you've always done, which means putting the best team together. Now is not the time for that. And she would only have 7 practices with this team, Stephen A.
Who talk about women's sports more than First Take?
Stephen A., respectfully, with your platform, you could have been doing this 3 years ago if you wanted to.
Is nowhere like what Clark has done in just 1 season. What many of these so-called analysts fail to comprehend is that promoting a sport without interest means nothing. People are unlikely to tune in if there is no compelling motive to do so. If there isn't a player or a team that is worth watching, all the promotion in the world does nothing. And looking at someone like Cheryl Swoops, kind of saying the exact same thing. The WNBA, they didn't need saving, they just needed promotion. That is the most ridiculous statement I have ever heard. Prior to Clark, this league had received a lot of promotion after 2016, and despite that, ratings and attendance had just slightly increased. They have received constant marketing on NBA games, NBA players, social media, and mainstream networks. And not once in the league's history has Caitlin Clark's star risen so dramatically. So, yes, Cheryl swoops into your league. It needed saving in the worst possible way. Unfortunately for you, Caitlin Clark rescued the league. Now, I'm not a huge admirer of Stephen A. Smith, but such sentiments are utterly inappropriate, because Stephen himself couldn't have salvaged this league if he tried. And when it comes to the first take, they don't even mention baseball or hockey, which are important sports in America.
Who talk about women's sports more than first take?
Stephen A., respectfully, with your platform, you could have been doing this 3 years ago if you wanted to.
You know what they won't talk about? The WNBA. At least not before Caitlin Clark. Of course, Clark receives ratings and views, and she must invest in the sport and her team. What would have occurred if they had discussed the WNBA back in 2017 to 2018? Click, switch off, or change channels, and the ratings will tumble. As I have stated, promotion is ineffective if your product is subpar. And let's be clear, Caitlin Clark's popularity is not due to her skin color or anything else. Her play style, flair, and being a female pistol P all contribute to her popularity. A'ja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, and Brittany Griner are unquestionably first-ballot Hall of Famers. But those players are like the big man version of Kareem. Kareem's game was one of talent and skill. Was he a box office must-see on television? No, not really. Prior to Magic, he struggled in the NBA for much of his career. It took Magic and Bird to inspire Kareem and save his dying league. The same goes for A'ja Wilson and Breanna Stewart. They're excellent players at this stage, even better than Clark. However, Clark, who works for Vox, must regard TV as a far more exciting player. And one other thing I'd like to mention is Clark's performance since the USA snub, as her team has gone 9-2 in 11 games, and she's played exceptionally well individually. 23 points, 10 assists, 5 rebounds, and 1 steal on significantly improved shooting. Clark is the league's third highest scorer after only Mitchell and Wilson, by far the most assists per game, with more than 3. And in terms of long-range shooting, ranks first in made threes at 37 during the span. If Clark is accomplishing this as a rookie at 22 years old, imagine a year or two from now when she is at her peak and her game is comprehensive and well-rounded. Caitlin Clark's ceiling, quite literally, is the best player of all time. That's not hyperbole conjecture, that's simply what it is. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned as we witness history unfold before our eyes. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insights on the game and the legends in the making. Catch you next time.